Today we are looking into the Cambridge IGCSE Music Paper 1 listening regarding romantic music. So contrary to maybe normal people believe, if you're here and you don't know anything about music academics, or this is your first encounter with music time periods and different types of genres, romantic has nothing to do with romance or modern notions of love. Romantic music is music that comes under the umbrella of Western art music. And we have Baroque music, classical music, romantic music, and modern music that falls under this umbrella of Western art music. Now, romantic music is music that has been composed mostly in the 19th century. So this is about 1820 to 1900. And we know that history doesn't work in segments and it is not sectioned off. We only have these time frames and these periods for us as modern humans to just be able to understand it and grapple with it in a very compartmentalized way. But of course, time doesn't work like this. A good example of this is COVID-19. We have lived through it as people on this earth right now. But say, for instance, our grandchildren or great-grandchildren, one day they'll be learning about it in history. And which year will they maybe sectionalize it to? 2020. And there we go, a little footnote in a textbook somewhere. But we for sure know that COVID-19 did not just start on the 1st of January 2020. There are really periods of overlap. Things started before. Yes, 2020 was the big shutdown, lockdown for the world. And in various countries, they treated it a bit differently. Some people came out of lockdown sooner. Some people came out of lockdown, went back into lockdown, whatnot. But anyway, we do know that it didn't just stop there in the year 2020. It continued. 2021, we were still out there looking out for all the germs, wearing the masks, sanitizing. So we know that it was not just a 2020 thing. We know that there were periods of overlap, and we know that definitely in 2021 there were still these strenuous COVID lockdown rules and still sort of guidelines that we had to follow, as well as into 2022. I know that in South Africa we were still wearing masks up until the mid of 2022. And we have remnants of this still in our society today. COVID is still a thing and we are still grappling with it. But yet this may not be notated in books to come in the future. But we know by living through it now that time is not a segmented thing. It really is an organic and overflowing thing. And this is the same thing with music and music periods back in the day. So just for us to have a nice compartmentalized view of what happened in the past, we have these strict years which we follow and say romantic music was composed between this time and this time. But of course it was overlap in real time. But the reason why romantic music is called romantic music is just because the composers during this period had more freedom to write their own music, to write what they wanted to do. Some of them sort of freed themselves from patrons and also being either the monarchy or just rich people in general in society that were funding them before or paying them to write things specifically commissioned for them or for specific gatherings, specific balls, specific events. Now the musicians actually had ownership over their own music. The composers could write what they wanted, and therefore there was more expression and more freedom in the music. This is why it is called romantic. Nothing to do with love. So let's just move on, and we're going to look at our questions. These questions come from the November 2020, woohoo, COVID year, from the November 2020 paper 1 3 question paper, and this is from section 8.2. So in the broader scheme of listening to Western art music, this section was the very second section and second excerpt of listening in the paper. This is the second Western art music listening, and we are dealing, of course, now with romantic music. So we will look at the questions. They give us a score, a little skeleton score there for us to look at, very short and sweet, and they ask us to read the questions. So we will do that now. You will hear an extract from an instrumental piece. So no voices, only instruments. They do tell us name 2 instruments that you hear in the extract, so we have to keep an ear out for that. Then describe the relationship between the 2 instruments at the start of the extract. Then they say, when the extract continues after the printed music, the opening music is heard again. Now describe 2 differences that you hear. So what is different from when you heard the music the first time when it was printed, and now when a repeat of the music comes and it's no longer printed for us? What is the difference there? Then they're going to ask us what kind of piece is this, and they'll give us types of pieces. And then, when was this music written? So of course this is a romantic music video, so we will be jotting down there either the romantic period or the 19th century, but then we definitely have to give a reason for our answer, and we only have to give one. So let's go ahead and listen to our listening, and then we'll go ahead and answer our questions.
Now listen to music A2 and answer the questions.
Okay, so let's dive right into the questions once more, and we're going to answer it systematically. So of course that was our first playing, our first listening of this round, and you need to answer the Cambridge IGCSE listening paper in order from start to finish. You won't have time to go back unless you have a photographic oral memory, but you do have to answer as the CD plays. Everyone in the venue will listen to the same CD being played by the examiner. There are no pauses allowed, so we have leisure today to pause in this video, but that will not be possible in the actual exam. You have to listen right through. And when it comes to section A, when you get an extract, you will be able to hear it 4 times. So this was our first playing, for example. Then there will be a break, there will be a second playing, then there will be a break, a third playing, a break, with a final 4th playing, and then a final break in which you can answer and finalize and jot down everything that you need before closing off the section and then moving on to section B, and then you will never again turn back to section A. So it's very much a chronological thing, it's very much a timed thing, and you have to go along with the CD. There are moments of playing and moments of silence all programmed on the CD, so there will not be any stop starting. And once you have listened to music A2 and you've gotten into it, you've gotten into your first playing, you've just listened, you try to figure out what time period can this music come out of, you will then set your mind into a specific direction for the next few playings, because you only have 3 playings left, and then you will have to think, okay, what do I really want answered, and playing 2, what am I really going to zoom into there, playing 3, what do I want to hear, and with the 4th and final playing, what specifically am I going to listen to there? So you have to be very systematic about this, not just because the CD is systematic, but because you do not have time to waste. You need to be on top of everything. So after our first playing, I'm pretty sure that we can answer already the 2 instruments that we heard. Of course, it was violin and piano, and that already, kicks out the idea that this can be a Baroque piece. Of course, it's not Baroque, it's far from Baroque, but you definitely will not hear a piano in historically informed Baroque performance practice. So yeah, in the beginning you can already think a lot of things can come into your mind, and you can already do sort of a trial and error and sort of a process of elimination. No, this is not, no, this is not, yes, this is. But we'll get there now when we get to the later questions and sort of answer why certain things are the way they are. But question 6A, 2 instruments that we hear, it's definitely violin and piano. And then they say, describe the relationship between the 2 instruments. So this we'll have to go ahead and just listen to again. So I'm going to go ahead and play that for us.
Music A2, second playing.
Okay, so I'm just going to stop it there. So of course we can hear that the instruments copy one another. They are imitating each other. They are basically in canon. So there we can go ahead and say the instruments imitate each other. Then question 7. When the extract continues after the printed music, the opening is heard again. So let us describe two differences that we hear. And of course they highlight the word two, and in brackets they do tell us that the question is worth 2 marks. So let us give 2 facts here. So of course, right at the beginning of our extract, we hear the violin start. And then after the violin starts, the piano copies. We said the instruments imitate each other, the piano here imitates the violin. But now the opposite is true. The piano starts and the violin imitates. And this is after the printed music that we see. So piano starts first, and of course the piano melody is also much lower. It is in a different key, but if you just say that it is lower, you'll get your marks there. And also if you do happen to mention that the piano melody is now in the left hand, and because it is lower we are assuming it's left hand, if you do happen to say that, well done, you will also get a mark for that. And then of course the piano also starts moving in a more broken chord quaver fashion. So any of those will give you your marks there. Question 8, what type of piece is this? So of course here we have to know our genres, our multi-movement genres with 3 or 4 movements, and by which instruments those are played. So for instance, a concerto. So a concerto is played by a soloist, or an orchestra. This is definitely not that, so by. Oratorio, that would just be voices, so no. Sonata, yes. Symphony, just played by an orchestra, so no. So definitely sonata. Sonata it is. A sonata is a multi-movement genre in 3 or 4 movements, and the movements have a certain structure, specific order, and also, specific tempo indications. But the most important thing is a sonata is played by a soloist, accompanist, and these instruments of violin and piano definitely do suit the genre. So we're going to go ahead and tick that block. Then when was this music written? Of course it is 19th century or in the Romantic period, but we cannot just leave it there. We have to go ahead in 9b and state a reason for this. Now of course there are many different reasons why we can explain that a piece is a romantic piece, and it definitely does depend on what we're hearing. So if we're hearing a symphony orchestra, the symphony orchestra is much bigger, it's louder, the brass has been introduced in a very big way. And of course different concerti, which is the plural of concerto, it's very virtuosic in this era, and you would definitely be able to tell the difference between a classical concerto and a romantic concerto, a classical symphony and a romantic symphony. It would be very obvious. But we're not dealing with any of those now, we're dealing with the sonata. So saying that the orchestra is bigger and fuller is not going to help us here. It doesn't make sense according to this extract that we've been given. So we have to think about what we hear right now. So of course a big thing in romantic music is chromaticism, and I definitely do hear chromatic harmony here, so you can go ahead and give that as a reason for your answer. You can also say that you can hear modulation here, and not just any type of modulation, it's more to a wider variety of keys, a wider range of keys, because if we think about classical modulation, that's more to closely related keys, whereas romantic modulation and music that modulates in the romantic era would more be directed towards more remote keys and just a wide range of keys in general. Also we have flowing lyrical melodies in the Romantic period. Of course, this is not the only period in which we get this, but it exists in the Romantic period, and of course it exists in the excerpt that we just listened to. So any of those will give you your answer there. And if you do have anything else that makes sense according to this excerpt and according to general convention as to why this is a romantic piece and you can actually hear it in the excerpt, Cambridge will give you a mark there. So that is that for this short extract. I hope that helps, and I hope that it has given you some insight into what Cambridge may ask when it comes to romantic music regarding your general Western art music listening for the IGCSE Music Paper 1. I still sanitize today because it's just a lifestyle thing. It was never a thing about this is COVID, this is what you must do now thing. But anyway, let me not get onto a rant. So